Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and thank you for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja based event and wedding photographer, Tavishima Ayede. At the last episode, if I remember correctly, I think we looked into simple sales situations, why that is important, and what the implications are for setting your price and how you handle negotiations. Now, if I remember correctly, I think I promised that today we're going to look into complex sales situations, and we would come out at the end of the conversation trying to figure out if those of us in the wedding space are involved in a simple sales situation or in a complex sales situation. So, as a summary, remember that the implication for simple as a summary, the implications when you're dealing with a simple sales situation is you're dealing with one of those situations where you either take it or leave it. So, you just give the price, try and gouge as much as you can. And if you're on the buying end, you try and beat down the price as much as you can and extract as most value as you possibly can. So, either way, there's a hard line that is drawn. You either take it or leave it. No love lost. And long-term prospects of long-term relationships are not necessarily desired here. Okay, so now let's move into complex sales situations. Now, back to the earlier question, the first one that I asked maybe 3 episodes ago on whether sales is a conversation or an event. And you now start getting the point that I was making, that in some circumstances, especially for we wedding folks, I would like us to take the assumption that sales is a process involving multiple conversations that we're trying to build over time to maximize and leverage our present contacts and present opportunities for future gains. Now, when you're in a complex sales situation, here you have to, by necessity, think of the sale as a process because, well, of course, you're dealing with a complex situation. Now, the example that I gave during during the training sessions with the Seed Builders Hub in Abuja was the examples that I gave for simple sales situations, I think, was Egusi. And for complex sales situations, I think the example that I used was for buying a jet. Now, even though after the training, part of the feedback I received was I shouldn't use the jet example because it might not seem relatable, because here we are, ordinary folks. What do we know about buying complex machinery like planes, which cost multiple 100 millions of dollars? But I'm still going to use those examples here, especially the jet one, because they're polar opposites, and I think they show in a very visible way the differences and the gap that you can span when you are in a sales situation. So for complex sales situations, I'm going to stick with the plain example. So yes, it seems far-fetched, far removed, because I doubt that anyone listening to this owns a jet or is going to buy a plane anytime soon. But in the meantime, please just track with me. So, Egusi, simple sales situation. It's a commodity. It's a simple subject matter. The number of parties involved are few. It's a low-priced item. We don't give a hoot about long-term relationships. I just want my Egusi, and I want to leave. She just wants a price, and she wants me to get away so that she can call over my shoulder to the next person passing around in the market so that she can make another sale for 2 or 3 cups of Egusi. Now, for complex sales situations, we're going to flip the criteria. So it involves a complex subject matter. So, Egusi is simple. A jet is not. Because, it's a complex machine, multiple moving parts, and then, of course, the sale of the machine, of the plane, involves other related parties and stakeholders and decision makers. So if you're going to buy a jet, for instance, let's assume it's Arik Air or one of those companies that needs to buy a jet. There are multiple stakeholders. They have to consider the balance sheet, what the shareholders are going to think. They have to worry about the Nigerian airports authorities and other regulators about what their stance is on safety features for certain models, things like that. There might even be policy and policy decision making level things that they need to mull through. Let's just say it's possible that at some point in the future, maybe Nigerians are worried about being over reliant on the American and United Kingdom air makers, and they want to consider other countries. But bottom line is, when it comes to buying an airplane, there are lots of things you have to do. It's not just you who is in procurement. You're in procurement, you're talking to your line manager. Your line manager has people who are in touch with the CEO. CEO is talking with shareholders. And of course, you guys are in touch with regulators to be sure that you're doing the right thing and everything is above board. So you can see how, for the sale of a goosey, your wife gives you the instruction, go and get me a goosey. And then me, the humble husband, I go to the market and I buy the goosey. It's not the same. The plane is a lot more complex. Because it is complex, there are lots of stakeholders that are involved. And so the decision trees become quite complex because lots of people have to discuss with different people and at different times over different particular things. So this is not just going to be a straightforward sale where I, Mr. Ayede in procurement, will just pick up the phone to Boeing and say, hey, Boeing, can you please send us 12 747s? And they send over the 747s, and then we write them a check, and that's the end of the story. So the process is going to be a whole lot more complex. Now, because of the complex subject matter and the number of parties that are involved and all the issues that are at stake, and because this is a high-priced item, there is no way that this sale is going to be concluded because I just picked up the phone in procurement and made a call, and that was the end. Multiple conversations are going to be had. People are going to have long-term relationships individually. So let's say me in procurement and my contemporary over at Boeing or whichever the company is, we're going to have to be chatting a lot, suss each other out, feel each other out. Our bosses are also going to have to be in touch as well. Basically, long-term relationships in these sorts of things are desirable because you don't want to buy the wrong plane. Not only that, when you do buy the right plane, you want to try and lock in these beneficial terms for as long as possible. So there's going to be plenty of toasting involved and trying to build long-term relationships, basically. So I have used examples that are polar opposite, and I hope that I've been able to tease out what the differences are regarding subject matter, the number of parties, the price of the item, and whether long-term relationships are desirable or not. So, like the folks at Seed Builders mentioned, a whole lot of us are neither here nor there. We are not simply selling a goosey, and we are not selling jets. So we're somewhere in between. There are a couple of people who sell shoes on Instagram, or you're a wedding vendor because you're a florist, so it's just flowers you deal in, or you're a wedding photographer like me, or you're a wedding planner like Omotola, who I'm going to be interviewing in a couple of days. So we're somewhere in between. But the bottom line is, wherever it is that you find yourself on the scale, just in case we have people who are non-wedding and event professionals listening, is you have to give yourself some serious thought. Am I in a simple sales situation, or is this a complex sales situation? Because if it's a simple sales situation and you're trying to do this whole thing of building long-term relationships and stuff like that, you might be grating on the nerves of your prospective customers. So I don't know anything about florals, but let me just hazard a guess. So, if you're a florist, and even though you're in the wedding space, it is a simple sales situation, then you trying to make casual conversation about where you went to school, how did you meet your husband, what do you do for work, blah, blah, blah. All those conversations might just seem like they are beside the point and you're wasting time. In fact, the customer might even think you are trying to sidestep the issue of price, which is probably what she asked first of all, and she might assume that you're just not confident in the good that you offered. On the other hand, let me hazard another guess. If you're a wedding planner, with all the moving parts that are involved in trying to plan a wedding, you asking all those questions might actually seem quite relevant. Like, who are you? What kind of bride are you? What's your husband like? What are the families like? How did you guys meet? What's your perfect vision for the wedding? You know, stuff like that. I mean, even questions about like what their goals in life and stuff like that, might not seem like stretching it at the end of the day, because it will be obvious to the bride and the groom that, well, they're just trying to feel, you are just trying to feel them out, so you can get a sense of what it is that they would like and what it is that they won't like. And all those kinds of questions, quite frankly, might move the process along, because you might ask those questions and then you get to realize that this bride is an uber sophisticated babe, and so because of that, this is how you need to plan it. Or even though they might be from an extremely peppered family, as in they have lots of money, but these people are down to earth, they're like salt of the earth. So the planning process and all the things you're going to offer them might have to be more practical or toned down. So it's a fundamental question that we need to ask ourselves. You, as a wedding photographer, like I am, or as a makeup artist, or a cake person, or a florist, or a wedding planner, you need to ask yourself, are you in a simple sales situation, or are you in a complex sales situation? And so whenever I have these classes, just like I did when we are the seed builders, or the first time that I ran this module with Laura's students, that's Laura of Posh and Pristine Events, we have this conversation, and it's something that you're going to have to decide on your own. Of course, if you ask me what my own opinion is, I suspect that most of us in the wedding space are involved in complex sales situations. I'm not sure about the florist, I'm not sure about the makeup artist, and I'm not sure about the people who sell fireworks, the pyrotechnics. So I'm not sure about those people. But for the rest of us, I really think we're in a complex sales situation. Maybe even the MC, I'm sure there's some complexity that's involved there. So you need to ask. You need to ask those questions of yourself, so that you know how you're going to price, and you know how you're going to handle yourself when you're in negotiation situations. So if in your heart of hearts you ask yourself that question, you're a florist, and you've come to understand that you are in a simple sales situation, then your approach is pretty much take it or leave it. On the other hand, let's say you are a florist, but you're not trying to be a typical florist. You're trying to do something high-end and bespoke and things like that. And because of that, you're now in a complex sales situation. There's going to be much more room for subtlety, more flexibility in carrying on conversations, in having pricing and negotiating conversations and things of that nature. So it's an important question that we need to ask ourselves right. We need to ask ourselves right from the beginning. So, so before I leave, there's the matter of the price. The price, yes, and that's one thing that some people get hung up over. So if something is low priced, does that make it simple? If something is high priced, does that make it complex? You find that it's most often the case that is the relationship, but that is not always the case. Because I've been in situations where photography, yes, it's a complex sales situation, but you're dealing with some people that are extremely peppered up. And so from their point of view, the photography question or the wedding planning question is inconsequential. That's because they have too much pepper. So for folks like that, it's very easy. You just get there, 2 minutes to write the check, and you're done. In fact, last year I had one of those. Was a birthday party, and I must confess, those are the kind of clients that my wife likes, because with those people, there's not too much dilly-dallying. So they call, there's a few questions to get the parameters, to get the scope, get an idea of what the vision is, and then they want a figure, and then they get it, and the next question is, how much is the deposit that you want, or do I have to pay everything in full? And then, and you just move on from there. So yes, you run into those situations where, even though you think it's a complex sales situation because you're a photographer or you're a wedding planner, to the individual on the other end, it's not really that complex. It's very simple. Okay, madam wedding planner, how much is this going to cost me? Okay, 5 million. Okay, no problem. How much do you want as a deposit? 2.5. Okay, very good. Let me have your account number. I'll send it. Done. So there's also that part of the equation as well. If the other person on the side of the table thinks that they're in a simple sales situation, no matter what you feel, then you just have to approach it as it is. So there will be those situations where you come in trying to be all nice and sophisticated and everything, but the person comes to the table, is ready for the brass tacks, and that's because they're peppered up, and quite frankly, they have more important things to do than answer questions about whether you want Egyptian cotton or English linen drapings in the hall. And so for them, you're in a simple sales situation. So that's it. And like I said in the last episode, please do not take my words as gospel when it comes to all these things. Just take it that all the time we spend here on the podcast is just me providing a primer about different ways that we should think about being involved in our business. That's for those of us in the wedding and the event space. So just think of it as a primer. Take what you hear here as my opinion. Go and do some research. Google. There's a bookboon.com. I used to get a lot of my resources, business resources from them back when I was in uni. Another photographer, TB. She does portraits now. She used to do weddings. That's TB and Tay Photography. She told me about Scribd. I think it's Scribd, SCRIBBD or something like that. They're currently running a promo. You sign up there, you get 2 months free on ebooks, audiobooks, and stuff like that. And it looks like they have a really robust selection. But bottom line is, learning about these things is extremely easy because the information is available. So this generation, we have no excuse. Maybe our parents had excuses because back in those days you had to attend the course, you had to buy the material, and it's not like the material was readily available. You have to wait until your cousin is traveling to the UK or something like that. But that's not the case with us. So the information is out there. Take these conversations we have here as a primer. Use them as a research material to go get the answers that you need. So, thank you for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based event and wedding photographer, Tavishima Ayede. I'll catch you guys at the next episode, where hopefully we should move into one-time closes versus one-call closes. The reason why I want to have that conversation is because there are loads of you out there, particularly wedding photographers and wedding videographers in Lagos and Abuja, who always want to get the client to drop that money now. You're meeting them today, you want to drop the money today. We really need to consider that question. When is it appropriate to have a one-call close or a one-time close? I'm meeting you today, first time. You don't know me for Adam. We've met at the wedding fair, but somehow I think I can get you to cut me that check of 250k deposit today. So we'll consider that question at the next recording. So thanks for listening, guys. I value your time and attention. I'll catch you on the next episode.